Keisha Williams checked her reflection one more time in her car mirror before stepping out into the busy downtown street. She had spent extra time that morning making sure everything was perfect. Her navy blue business suit was pressed, her leather portfolio contained all the documents she needed, and her hair was styled in neat braids that fell just past her shoulders. Today was important. Today, she was finally going to open a business account for her consulting company. At 28, Keisha had worked hard to get to this point. After years of saving money and building her client base, she was ready to take her small business to the next level. The consulting firm she had started from her apartment was growing, and she needed a proper business account to manage her finances. Professionally, she had chosen Metropolitan Trust Bank because of their reputation and convenient location. The bank was busy when she walked through the glass doors. Customers stood in neat lines while tellers worked behind their windows. The marble floors clicked under her heels as she made her way to the customer service area. A young woman at the front desk looked up with a polite smile. "Good morning. How can I help you today?" "I'd like to open a business account," Keisha said, placing her portfolio on the counter. "I have all my paperwork ready." The woman's smile seemed to fade slightly as she looked Keisha up and down. "Oh, okay. Let me get someone to help you with that. Please have a seat over there." Keisha waited in the seating area for nearly 20 minutes before a middle-aged man in a wrinkled shirt approached her. His name tag read Branch Manager. He didn't introduce himself or shake her hand. "So, you want to open a business account?" he asked, settling into the chair across from her with a skeptical expression. "Yes, that's right. I have my business license, tax ID number, and initial deposit ready," Keisha replied, opening her portfolio to show him the organized documents. The manager barely glanced at her papers. "What kind of business is this supposed to be?" "It's a financial consulting firm. I help small businesses with their bookkeeping and financial planning." He raised an eyebrow. "Financial consulting? How long have you been doing this?" 2 years. I started part-time while working my day job, and now I'm ready to go full-time." "And you're saying you make enough money from this to need a business account?" Keisha felt a knot forming in her stomach. Something about his tone felt wrong. "Yes, I do. That's why I'm here. I have steady clients and growing revenue." The manager picked up one of her documents and examined it closely, as if looking for something wrong with it. "This business license looks pretty new. It's renewed annually. This is the current year's license." He set the paper down and leaned back in his chair. "You know, we have to be very careful about business accounts. There's a lot of paperwork involved, and we need to verify everything thoroughly." "I understand. That's why I brought everything you require. I checked your website to make sure I had all the necessary documents." "The website doesn't tell you everything," he said curtly. "We'll need additional verification for your type of business." "What kind of additional verification?" "Client references, proof of income for the past 2 years, verification of your business address." Keisha frowned. "My business address is my home office, and I brought my tax returns showing my business income." "A home office?" The manager's voice grew louder, drawing attention from nearby customers. "You're trying to open a business account for a home office?" "Yes, many consultants work from home offices. It's completely legitimate." "Look, miss, I don't know what kind of operation you're running, but this bank has standards. We can't just open accounts for anyone who walks in here claiming to have a business." Heat rose in Keisha's cheeks. "I'm not claiming anything. I have a real business with real clients and real income. I have all the documentation right here." "Don't raise your voice at me," the manager snapped. "Maybe you should try a different bank, one that's more suited to your situation." Other customers were starting to stare. Keisha could feel their eyes on her, and she realized how this must look to them. A young black woman arguing with a bank manager, her voice getting higher with frustration. "There's nothing wrong with my situation," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "I'm a legitimate business owner with all the proper documentation. I just want to open an account. And I'm telling you that your documentation isn't sufficient for our requirements. Then tell me exactly what else you need and I'll get it." "I don't think you understand. This isn't about getting more paperwork. This is about whether your business meets our standards for commercial banking." Keisha stood up, gathering her papers. Are you saying my business doesn't meet your standards? I'm saying that home-based consulting operations often don't have the stability or legitimacy that we look for in commercial clients. That's ridiculous. Thousands of legitimate businesses operate from home offices. Not at this bank, they don't. The security guard, who had been watching the exchange from across the lobby, started walking toward them. He was a large man with stern eyes and an intimidating presence. Is there a problem here? The guard asked, directing his question to the manager rather than Keisha. This woman is becoming disruptive, the manager replied. She's insisting we open an account that doesn't meet our criteria. I'm not being disruptive, Keisha protested. I'm trying to open a business account with proper documentation, and he's refusing to process it. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down, the security guard said, stepping closer to her. I am calm. I'm just trying to understand why my business isn't good enough for this bank. You're raising your voice and causing a scene, the manager said. Other customers are complaining. Keisha looked around and saw that people were indeed staring, but she didn't think any of them looked particularly bothered. They seemed more curious than annoyed. I'm not causing a scene. I'm having a business discussion that you're making unnecessarily difficult. Ma'am, I think it would be best if you left, the security guard said, his hand moving toward the radio on his belt. I'm not leaving until someone explains to me why a legitimate business with proper documentation can't open an account here. You need to leave now, the guard said firmly. No, I don't. I'm a customer trying to conduct business. I have every right to be here. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. The security guard reached for Keisha's arm, and she instinctively pulled away. The movement caused her to stumble slightly, and the guard interpreted this as resistance. He grabbed her more firmly, and Keisha's portfolio fell to the floor, scattering her carefully organized documents across the marble. Let go of me, she said, trying to pull free from his grip. Stop resisting, the guard commanded, tightening his hold on her arm. The commotion drew more attention from customers and staff. Someone pulled out a phone and started recording. In the struggle, the guard's free hand caught in Keisha's braids, and she felt a sharp pain as several of them were pulled loose. You're hurting me, she called out. A female employee appeared with a pair of scissors. Her hair is a safety hazard, she announced. It could be hiding something. Before Keisha could protest, the woman began cutting away the damaged braids that had come loose during the struggle. Chunks of Keisha's hair fell to the floor along with her scattered papers. Stop, Keisha cried, but the security guard held her firmly while the employee continued cutting. The entire lobby had gone silent except for the sound of the scissors and Keisha's protests. Customers stood frozen, some recording with their phones, others looking away in embarrassment or shock. When it was over, Keisha stood there with uneven patches of hair missing, her professional appearance destroyed, her documents trampled on the floor. The humiliation was overwhelming. She had never felt so small, so powerless, so completely stripped of her dignity. Now you need to leave, the manager said coldly, as if nothing unusual had happened. Keisha bent down to gather her scattered papers with shaking hands. Some of them were torn and dirty from being stepped on. Her business license had a footprint across it. Her carefully prepared presentation was ruined, just like her hair, just like her confidence. She walked toward the exit on unsteady legs, feeling every eye in the bank following her. The security guard escorted her to the door and watched as she stumbled out onto the sidewalk. Standing on the busy street with tears streaming down her face and her hair hanging in uneven pieces, Keisha had never felt more alone or defeated. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the humiliation and pain, something else was growing. Something that would change everything. Keisha sat in her car for 30 minutes before she could even turn on the engine. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking, and every time she looked in the rearview mirror, she saw the uneven patches where her hair had been cut. The woman staring back at her looked nothing like the confident businesswoman who had walked into that bank an hour earlier. The drive home felt endless. At every red light, she caught glimpses of other drivers and wondered if they could tell what had happened to her. She pulled her jacket hood up, trying to hide the damage, but nothing could hide the shame burning in her chest. Her apartment felt different when she walked in. The same furniture, the same walls, but everything looked smaller. Ow. The framed business license on her desk, the client files organized neatly on her bookshelf, her laptop where she had spent countless hours building her company. It all seemed pointless now. She went straight to the bathroom and stared at herself in the mirror. The sight was worse than she had imagined. Jagged pieces of hair stuck out at odd angles. Some sections were completely gone, leaving bare spots on her scalp. She looked like someone had attacked her, which she realized was exactly what had happened. The phone rang several times that afternoon, but she couldn't bring herself to answer it. Her clients calling about their projects, potential new customers, wanting consultations. How could she face any of them looking like this? How could she present herself as a professional when she had been treated like a criminal? That evening, her sister called again, and this time Keisha picked up. "Girl, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you all day." Keisha tried to speak, but only a sob came out. "Keisha, what's wrong? What happened?" Through tears, Keisha told her sister everything. The bank, the manager's attitude, the security guard, the scissors. With each detail, the humiliation felt fresh again. "They did what to your hair?" Her sister's voice rose with anger. "Are you serious right now?" "I can't even look at myself," Keisha whispered. "I feel so stupid. I thought I was ready to take my business to the next level, and instead I got treated like I was some kind of threat. This is not about you being stupid. This is about them being racist, discriminating jerks. You need to report this, Keisha. You need to make them pay for what they did." "Report it to who? You think anyone's going to care about what happened? To me? I care. And I guarantee you other people will care too. This is 2024, not 1954. You can't let them get away with this." After her sister hung up, Keisha sat in the dark thinking about what she had said. Report it. Make them pay. But how? She was just one person with a small consulting business. They were a major bank with lawyers and power and money. The next morning, she forced herself to get up and fix her hair as best she could. She found a salon that could squeeze her in for an emergency appointment. The stylist, an older woman with kind eyes, didn't ask too many questions when Keisha explained she needed help with an accident. "Honey, I've seen worse," the woman said gently as she worked. "We're going to get you looking beautiful again, don't you worry." The new haircut was shorter than Keisha had ever worn it, but it was neat and professional. Looking in the salon mirror, she felt a little bit of her confidence returning. She was still herself. What happened at the bank didn't change who she was or what she was capable of. Over the next few days, Keisha threw herself into research. She spent hours online learning about banking regulations, discrimination laws, and complaint processes. She discovered that what happened to her wasn't just wrong. It was illegal. Banks couldn't deny services based on race, and they certainly couldn't physically assault customers. She filed complaints with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the State Banking Commission, and the local civil rights office. Each form she filled out felt like a small act of rebellion against the powerlessness she had felt that day. But as the weeks passed, Keisha realized that filing complaints was only the beginning. The responses she received were polite but generic. "We take these matters seriously and will investigate thoroughly. Thank you for bringing this to our attention." Nothing that suggested real change would happen. Meanwhile, her business was suffering. She had missed appointments while dealing with the aftermath of the incident. Some clients had heard rumors about what happened and seemed uncomfortable, unsure how to address it. Others were sympathetic, but didn't know what to say. One evening, while reviewing her financial statements, Keisha had a realization that changed everything. She was looking at the numbers from her consulting work, the revenue she generated, the clients she served, the businesses she had helped grow. She was good at this. She understood finance, she understood business, and she was starting to understand something else too. She understood how the banking system worked to keep people like her out. It wasn't just about one racist manager or one bad bank. The whole system was designed to make it difficult for small businesses, especially minority-owned businesses, to access the resources they needed to grow. The complicated requirements, the subjective decision-making, the assumption that anything different from the traditional model was somehow suspicious or risky. That night, Keisha made a decision that surprised even her. Instead of trying to fight the system from the outside, she was going to learn how to change it from the inside. She started by researching the banking industry. She read everything she could find about how banks operated, how they made decisions, who held the power. She studied the career paths of successful banking executives, especially women and minorities who had broken through barriers. The more she learned, the more she realized how much she didn't know. But she also realized how much her experience as a consultant had already taught her. She understood financial analysis, customer service, and business development. She knew how to identify problems and create solutions. What she needed was formal training and experience within the banking industry itself. Keisha started looking at job openings at banks and credit unions. Not at Metropolitan Trust. She wasn't ready for that yet. But at other institutions that had better reputations for diversity and community service. She updated her resume, highlighting her financial consulting experience and her understanding of small business needs. The first few interviews didn't go well. She was either overqualified for entry-level positions or underqualified for management roles. But she kept applying, kept interviewing, kept learning. Finally, she got a call from Community First Credit Union. They were looking for a business development specialist who could help them expand their small business lending program. The hiring manager, a woman who had started her own career as a teller and worked her way up, seemed impressed by Keisha's combination of consulting experience and passion for helping small businesses succeed. "I have to ask," the woman said during the interview, "why are you interested in moving from consulting to banking? Most people go the other direction." Keisha thought about how to answer. She could tell the truth about what happened at Metropolitan Trust, but she wasn't sure if that would help or hurt her chances. Instead, she focused on what she had learned about herself in the weeks since the incident. "I realized that I want to be part of creating solutions, not just pointing out problems," she said. "I've seen too many good businesses struggle because they can't access the financial services they need to grow. I want to be on the inside helping to change that." The woman smiled. "That's exactly what we're looking for." Keisha got the job. On to her first day at Community First Credit Union. She wore her new short haircut with pride. She thought about the woman who had walked into Metropolitan Trust Bank 6 months earlier, nervous and hopeful and completely unprepared for what would happen to her. That woman had been focused on opening one business account. This woman was focused on something much bigger. As she settled into her new office, Keisha pulled out a notebook and wrote down a goal that would have seemed impossible 6 months earlier. Learn everything I can about banking. Build relationships, gain experience, get promoted, make changes. And at the bottom of the page, she wrote something else. Remember why this matters. She would never forget the feeling of standing on that sidewalk with her hair cut and her dignity stripped away. But now, instead of that memory making her feel small, it made her feel determined. Change was coming. She was going to make sure of it. Keisha's first week at Community First Credit Union felt like drinking from a fire hose. Everything was new. The computer systems, the policies, the regulations, even the language people used. Banking had its own vocabulary, and she spent her evenings studying terms like loan-to-value ratios and regulatory compliance. But she was determined to learn everything. Every morning she arrived 30 minutes early to read industry newsletters. During lunch breaks, she asked senior staff members to explain processes she didn't understand. She volunteered for training sessions even when they weren't required for her position. Her supervisor, an experienced loan officer named Patricia, noticed her enthusiasm right away. "You're like a sponge," Patricia told her after Keisha had spent an entire Saturday attending a voluntary workshop on commercial lending. "Most people in business development focus on sales. You're trying to understand the whole operation." "I want to be good at this," Keisha replied. "Really good." Within 3 months, Keisha was handling more small business accounts than anyone expected from someone so new to banking. Her consulting background helped her understand what business owners needed, and she could speak their language in a way that made them feel comfortable. One of her first major successes came with a small restaurant owner who had been turned down by 3 other banks. The man, who had immigrated from Korea and spoke limited English, had a solid business plan but struggled to communicate his vision to traditional lenders. Keisha spent hours with him, going through his financial projections and helping him organize his documentation. She saw what the other banks had missed. He wasn't just opening a restaurant. He was creating a community gathering place that would employ local residents and serve authentic food in an underserved neighborhood. When she presented his loan application to the credit union's lending committee, she didn't just show them numbers. She painted a picture of the business's potential impact on the community. The loan was approved, and 6 months later, the restaurant was thriving. Word spread quickly in the small business community. Keisha began getting referrals from customers who told their friends about the young woman at Community First who actually listened and understood their challenges. But Keisha knew that being good at her current job wasn't enough. She needed more education, more credentials, more credibility if she wanted to reach the highest levels of banking leadership. She enrolled in an MBA program that offered evening and weekend classes. The schedule was brutal, working full-time during the day, attending classes 3 nights a week and studying on weekends. But every time she felt tired or overwhelmed, she remembered standing on that sidewalk outside Metropolitan Trust Bank, with her hair chopped off and her dreams temporarily shattered. The MBA program opened her eyes to aspects of business she had never considered: strategic planning, organizational behavior, financial markets. Each class added another layer to her understanding of how large institutions operated. Her professors were impressed by her real-world experience. While other students talked about business in theoretical terms, Keisha could share actual examples from her work with small business owners. Her final project focused on improving access to capital for minority-owned businesses, and it earned the highest grade in the class. As her knowledge grew, so did her confidence and her reputation at the credit union. Patricia recommended her for a promotion to Senior Business Development Specialist, which came with a significant raise and more responsibility. In her new role, Keisha began working with larger business accounts and more complex loan structures. She also started attending industry conferences and networking events, where she met executives from banks and credit unions across the region. At one conference, she struck up a conversation with the regional vice president of First National Bank, a large institution known for its aggressive growth strategy. He was impressed by her insights about underserved markets and her track record of successful lending. "You should consider working for a larger institution," he told her. "Someone with your skills could go far in commercial banking." "I'm happy where I am," Keisha replied. But privately, she began to think about what her next move should be. The credit union had been good to her, but she was starting to realize its limitations. As a smaller institution, it could only offer so many opportunities for advancement. If she wanted to reach the executive level, she would need experience at a larger bank. That opportunity came sooner than expected. First National Bank called her 6 months later, with an offer to join their commercial lending team as an assistant vice president. The salary was nearly double what she was making at the credit union, and the position would give her exposure to much larger deals and more sophisticated banking operations. The decision was difficult. She loved her colleagues at Community First and felt loyal to the institution that had given her a chance. But she also knew that this was the next step in her plan. Patricia, her mentor, encouraged her to take the opportunity. "You've learned everything you can here," she said. "It's time for you to spread your wings. Just don't forget about us little guys when you're running some big bank." At First National, Keisha found herself in a completely different environment. The bank was corporate, formal, and focused on profit margins and market share. The customers were larger businesses with more complex financial needs, and the loan amounts were often 10 times bigger than what she had handled at the credit union. The adjustment wasn't easy. Some of her new colleagues seemed skeptical of her background at a credit union, viewing it as less sophisticated than traditional banking. A few made subtle comments about her community banking experience, as if helping small businesses was somehow less important than financing large corporations. But Keisha's results spoke for themselves. Her understanding of business fundamentals, combined with her ability to build relationships with clients, made her highly effective. She closed more deals in her first year than many colleagues who had been at the bank for 5 years. More importantly, she began to understand how large banks really operated. She learned about risk management, regulatory compliance, and the complex financial instruments that drove profitability. She saw how executive decisions were made and what factors influenced strategic planning. She also saw the gaps in the bank's approach to diverse markets. First National was excellent at serving large corporate clients, but it struggled to connect with smaller businesses and minority-owned enterprises. The bank's leadership recognized this weakness but didn't seem to know how to address it. Keisha saw an opportunity. She began developing proposals for new programs targeting underserved business communities. Her first initiative was a small business mentorship program that paired successful entrepreneurs with emerging business owners. The program was designed to help new businesses become bankable clients while also generating goodwill in diverse communities. The program was a huge success, generating both new business and positive media attention for the bank. Local newspapers wrote articles about First National's commitment to community development, and the program won an award from the Regional Small Business Association. Keisha's stock within the bank rose significantly. She was promoted to vice president and given responsibility for the bank's entire community development lending program. The role required her to work closely with senior executives and present regularly to the board of directors. For the first time since starting her banking career, Keisha felt like she was in a position where she could influence policy and strategy, not just implement decisions made by others. But she also began to see the limitations of even progressive programs within traditional banking structures. No matter how successful her initiatives were, they remained relatively small parts of the bank's overall business. The real power lay with the people who made decisions about the institution's fundamental direction. Keisha realized that if she wanted to create lasting change, she would need to reach the highest levels of banking leadership. She would need to become one of the people who set policy, not just one of the people who carried it out. As she sat in her new office, looking out at the city skyline, Keisha began to plan her next moves. She was no longer the humiliated woman who had been escorted out of Metropolitan Trust Bank. She was becoming someone who could change the entire industry. The journey was far from over, but she could finally see the destination clearly. The call came on a Tuesday morning that would change everything. Keisha was reviewing loan applications when her phone rang, displaying a number she didn't recognize. "This is David Chen from First National's corporate development team," the voice said. "We need to meet with you today. Something big is happening." 2 hours later, Keisha sat in a conference room with 5 senior executives she had only seen in company photos. The atmosphere was tense, and everyone spoke in hushed tones about confidential matters and market opportunities. "We're acquiring Metropolitan Trust Bank," David announced, sliding a thick folder across the table to her. "The deal will be finalized in 60 days, and we need someone to lead the integration process." Keisha's heart stopped. Metropolitan Trust Bank, the same bank where she had been humiliated and assaulted 4 years earlier. The same marble floors, where her hair had been cut off, where her dignity had been stripped away in front of dozens of witnesses. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The chief operating officer leaned forward. "Metropolitan Trust has been struggling with regulatory issues, declining profits, and a terrible reputation for customer service. We see it as an opportunity to expand our market presence, but it's going to require a complete cultural transformation. We've been watching your work with community development programs," David added. "Your track record of turning around problematic relationships and building trust in underserved markets makes you the perfect candidate to oversee this transition." Keisha stared at the folder without opening it. Inside were financial statements, regulatory reports, and strategic assessments of the bank that had treated her like a criminal. The irony was overwhelming. "There's something else," the CEO continued. "During our due diligence, we discovered some concerning patterns in their customer service practices. Several discrimination complaints, biased lending decisions, and what appears to be systematic exclusion of minority customers. The board wants someone who understands these issues to clean house and rebuild their reputation, David explained. Someone who can speak authentically about the importance of inclusive banking. They didn't know. Keisha realized that none of these executives were aware of her personal history with Metropolitan Trust. To them, she was just a talented vice president with experience in community development. This would be a significant promotion, the COO said. Senior vice president, with full authority over the integration process. You'd essentially be running the combined operation while we restructure. And if you succeed, David added, you'd be the leading candidate for president and CEO of the merged institution. President and CEO. The words echoed in Keisha's mind. She would be in charge of the entire bank, including the branch where she had been humiliated. She would have the power to fire the manager who had questioned her legitimacy, the authority to retrain the staff who had watched her being assaulted, the opportunity to transform an institution that represented everything wrong with traditional banking. I need to think about this, she said finally. Of course. But we need an answer by Friday. The acquisition moves fast once it starts, and we need our integration team in place. That evening, Keisha sat in her apartment with the Metropolitan Trust folder open on her kitchen table. The financial reports painted a picture of an institution in decline. Customer satisfaction scores were terrible, employee turnover was high, and regulatory complaints were increasing every quarter. But what struck her most were the demographic breakdowns in the customer data. The bank served a diverse metropolitan area, but their customer base was overwhelmingly white and affluent. Despite being located in neighborhoods with large minority populations, Metropolitan Trust had somehow managed to avoid serving those communities. It wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate business model that had finally caught up with them. Keisha's phone buzzed with a text from her sister. How was your day? Instead of texting back, Keisha called her. You'll never believe what happened, she said, and told her sister about the acquisition offer. Wait, her sister interrupted. You're telling me that the bank that cut your hair and humiliated you is now going to be your bank? If I take the job, yes. Girl, this is like something out of a movie. You have to take it. You have to. I don't know. It feels weird going back there. Weird? This is justice. This is karma. This is the universe giving you a chance to fix everything that was wrong with that place. After they hung up, Keisha walked to her bathroom mirror and looked at herself. Her hair had grown back, longer and healthier than before. Her reflection showed a confident executive who had earned her position through hard work and intelligence. But for a moment, she could still see that other woman, the one who had stood in this same spot 4 years ago, looking at the damage they had done to her, feeling small and powerless and defeated. Not anymore, she said to her reflection. The next morning, Keisha called David Chen. I'll take the job, she said, but I have some conditions. Name them. I want complete authority over staffing decisions at Metropolitan Trust. If someone needs to be fired, I fire them. If someone needs to be retrained, I design the program. Done. I want to implement new customer service protocols based on my community development experience. Absolutely. And I want to personally oversee the transition at their main downtown branch. Any particular reason? Keisha paused. Let's just say I have some familiarity with their customer service challenges. The acquisition process moved quickly. Federal regulators approved the merger. Shareholders voted in favor, and media coverage focused on First National's expansion into new markets. Very few people paid attention to the appointment of a new senior vice president to oversee integration. Keisha spent the weeks before the merger studying every aspect of Metropolitan Trust's operations. She reviewed personnel files, customer complaints, and operational procedures. She identified the employees who would need additional training, the managers who might need to be replaced, and the policies that would need to be completely rewritten. Most importantly, she studied the staff records from the downtown branch where her assault had occurred. The branch manager was still there, still questioning customers' legitimacy and creating barriers for people who didn't fit his narrow definition of appropriate banking clients. The employee who had cut her hair had been promoted to assistant, branch manager. The security guard had been fired 2 years earlier for an unrelated incident involving excessive force with another customer. 3 days before the merger was finalized, Keisha made an unexpected visit to Metropolitan Trust's corporate headquarters. She wore her best suit and carried herself with the confidence of someone who belonged in executive boardrooms. The current president of Metropolitan Trust, a man in his 60s who had agreed to step down after the acquisition, greeted her in his office. "I understand you'll be overseeing our integration," he said, shaking her hand. "That's right. I wanted to meet with you personally to discuss the transition. I appreciate that. I know this bank has had some challenges, but we have good people here. I'm sure you do. I'm also sure there are some people who may not be a good fit for the new culture we're building." "What kind of culture are you talking about?" Keisha smiled. "One where every customer is treated with respect, regardless of what they look like or where they come from." The man's expression shifted slightly. "Of course, that's always been our policy." "I'm glad to hear that," Keisha replied, "because that policy is about to be enforced much more strictly." After the meeting, Keisha walked through the corridors of Metropolitan Trust, noting the formal portraits of past presidents lining the walls. All men, all white, all representing decades of the same narrow perspective that had created the problems she was here to solve. Soon, her portrait would be on this wall. Soon, she would be the one setting policy and determining the direction of this institution. As she left the building, Keisha looked up at the Metropolitan Trust sign above the entrance. In a few months, it would be replaced with First National's logo, but the change would be much more than cosmetic. The real transformation was just beginning. The merger became official on a Monday morning in October. Keisha stood outside the downtown Metropolitan Trust branch at exactly 9 a.m., watching employees arrive for what they didn't know would be a very different kind of workday. She wore a navy blue suit, similar to the one she had worn 4 years earlier, but everything else was different. Her hair was styled in a sleek bob that framed her face perfectly. Her leather briefcase contained termination letters, retraining schedules, and new policy manuals instead of loan applications. Most importantly, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who owned the building she was about to enter. The irony wasn't lost on her as she walked through the same glass doors where she had once been dragged out by security. This time, she was the one with the power. The branch manager, the same man who had questioned her business legitimacy, was conducting the morning staff meeting when she entered. He looked up with annoyance at the interruption. "Excuse me, we're closed for staff meeting," he said curtly. "Banking hours start at 10. "I'm aware of your hours," Keisha replied calmly. "I'm your new regional supervisor." The man's face went blank. He stared at her for a long moment, and she could see the wheels turning in his mind. Something about her seemed familiar, but he couldn't quite place her. "I wasn't told about any regional supervisor visit today," he said. "That's because this isn't a visit. I'm taking over operations of this branch as part of the First National integration. Everyone please take a seat." The staff members looked confused, glancing between their manager and this confident woman who had just walked in and taken charge of their meeting. Keisha set her briefcase on the table and opened it, slowly, maintaining eye contact with the branch manager. "Let me introduce myself properly. I'm Keisha Williams, Senior Vice President of First National Bank, and I'm here to oversee the transition of this branch to new management." The assistant manager, the woman who had cut Keisha's hair, gasped audibly. She remembered. Her face went pale as the recognition hit her. "Some of you may remember me," Keisha continued, her voice steady and professional. "I was a customer here about 4 years ago. I came in to open a business account and had a very memorable experience with your customer service." The room fell completely silent. Several employees shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Today marks the beginning of a new era for this branch. We're going to discuss how we treat customers, how we evaluate business applications, and how we ensure that every person who walks through those doors feels welcome and respected. The branch manager found his voice. Now wait just a minute. I don't know what you think happened here, but we follow proper procedures for all customer interactions. Do you? Keisha asked, pulling a thick file from her briefcase. Because I have documentation of 17 customer complaints filed against this branch in the past 2 years. Complaints about discriminatory treatment, inappropriate questioning, of business legitimacy and unprofessional conduct. She opened the file and began reading. Mrs. Rodriguez was told her food truck business wasn't the right kind of business for this bank. Mr. Washington was asked to provide 3 times the normal documentation for a simple checking account. Miss Chen was told that her online retail business was probably temporary and didn't qualify for commercial services. With each example, more staff members looked down at their hands. They remembered these incidents, and they were beginning to understand that the casual discrimination they had practiced was about to have consequences. But today isn't about punishment, Keisha continued. It's about education and change. We're going to learn how to serve all customers with respect and professionalism. She turned to address the assistant manager directly. I understand you're responsible for training new employees on customer service procedures. Is that correct? The woman nodded, nervously. Good. Then you'll be attending our new diversity and inclusion training program. It starts next week and runs for 6 weeks. Attendance is mandatory. What if we don't want to attend? The branch manager asked defiantly. Keisha smiled. Then you'll be free to seek employment elsewhere. The choice is yours. Over the next hour, she outlined the new policies that would govern the branch. Every customer would be greeted within 30 seconds of entering. Business applications would be evaluated based solely on financial criteria, not personal judgments, about the business type or owner. Any employee who made a customer feel unwelcome would face immediate disciplinary action. I'll be checking in regularly, she concluded, and I'll be monitoring customer feedback very carefully. This branch is going to become a model for inclusive banking, or it's going to get new staff who can make that happen. As the staff dispersed to their positions, the branch manager approached her. Look, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Maybe we could discuss this privately. There's nothing to discuss, Keisha replied. You have 2 choices. Adapt to the new standards or find a job somewhere else. Those are your only options. You can't just come in here and change everything overnight. Actually, I can. That's exactly what I'm doing. She spent the rest of the day observing customer interactions. She watched as employees struggled to adjust to her presence, knowing they were being evaluated on every word and gesture. Some seemed genuinely eager to improve, asking questions about the new policies and requesting additional training. Others appeared resentful, going through the motions while clearly hoping this was temporary. Late in the afternoon, a young black man entered the bank to inquire about a small business loan. Keisha watched from across the lobby as he approached, the same desk where she had been humiliated years earlier. The teller who greeted him was polite but clearly nervous, glancing repeatedly toward Keisha as she processed his initial application. When the young man explained that he wanted to start a landscaping business, the teller nodded encouragingly and gathered all the necessary forms without questioning the legitimacy of his plans. It was a small moment, but it represented exactly the kind of change Keisha had envisioned. 6 months later, the transformation was undeniable. Customer satisfaction scores at the downtown branch had improved dramatically. The number of new business accounts opened had tripled, and complaint rates had dropped to nearly 0. The branch manager had chosen to retire rather than complete the diversity training. The assistant manager had not only completed the program, but had become one of its most enthusiastic advocates, often sharing her experience with other employees as an example of how people could change and grow. On the anniversary of the merger, Keisha received the call she had been expecting. The board has voted, David Chen told her. Congratulations, President and CEO Williams. That evening she stood in what was now her office on the top floor of the First National Building, looking down at the city lights. On her desk was a framed photograph from the ribbon-cutting ceremony at the downtown branch, which had been renamed the Community Development Center. In the photo, she was cutting a ribbon while surrounded by small business owners, community leaders, and bank employees. Everyone was smiling, but Keisha's expression showed something deeper than happiness. It showed satisfaction, justice, and the quiet pride of someone who had turned her worst experience into her greatest victory. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. "Saw the news about your promotion. I'm so proud of you. You did it." Keisha typed back, "We did it. All of us who refused to accept that things couldn't change." As she prepared to leave the office, Keisha walked past the portraits of previous bank presidents. Tomorrow, her portrait would be installed among them. The first woman, the first person of color, and the first leader who truly understood what it meant to be excluded from the very system she now controlled. The building was quiet as she rode the elevator down to the lobby. But tomorrow, it would be filled with employees committed to serving every customer with dignity and respect. It would be a place where young entrepreneurs could walk in with confidence, knowing their dreams would be taken seriously, regardless of what they looked like or where they came from. Standing on the sidewalk where she had once felt so powerless, Keisha looked up at the building that now bore her name as president and CEO. The journey from that humiliating day to this moment had been long and difficult, but it had led to something more valuable than personal success. It had led to real change, and that change would outlast any individual career or personal victory. The woman who had been broken down had built something better than what she had found.